In late June, someone pointed an AI at a company's servers and walked away. The AI did the rest. It broke in, stole the credentials, found the good data, encrypted it, and wrote its own ransom note. Sysdig's calling it the first agentic ransomware. And today, David and I will get into whether that's a genuine milestone or just a really good headline. So, welcome, David.
Thank you, Michelle. So, David Forrestall, CEO of Security 360, and Michelle.
I'm just the content person here at Security 360.
More than just a content person. So.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So should we dig in? Do you want to give anybody background information or setup?
Well,
or would you like me?
Any of these dramatic headlines related to AI, we're still in a big hype cycle here with it until it becomes, every day, even though this is probably the most used word or two letters in the English language right now. That's true. But yeah, it's, I always address these with a little bit of skepticism. It's like, okay, security researcher claims that this thing happened. They are security researchers. So tell us more. Tell us how it happened. And let's peel the onion back and see, did somebody just press go and walk away? And next thing you know, somebody's network's locked up with some random ransomware node, or was there really more to it?
Yeah. So yes, Sysdig was the security company. It published this report on July 1 about this ransomware attack. They say it was run start to finish by an AI instead of a person. They nicknamed the attacker Jade Puffer. Not quite sure why. It's an interesting name. I'm sure there's a reason. The AI broke into one server, snooped around, then it jumped to the real target, which was the company database, locked up about 1,300 plus setting files, deleted data, and then wrote its own ransom note demanding Bitcoin. The two doors that it walked through were old, known security holes that nobody had fixed. And I have the catalog numbers, but we do not need to rattle off numbers and letters right now. So yes, we'll put it in the show notes. So David, when you first saw the headline, that first AI run ransomware attack, what was your gut reaction? Was it kind of a, oh no, here we go? Was it more of a, well, obviously we all saw this coming? Let's hear your reaction.
Well, as I mentioned before, my gut reaction is skepticism. Like, okay, prove it. Now, conceptually, are we going to get there one day? Possibly. We might, because AI it's mimicking humans, and humans run end-to-end ransomware. Now, in the real world, though, most humans don't run the full end-to-end ransomware process, because there's things that we're leaving out, like where did you get the credentials? Who interfaced with the initial access broker, which if there is an initial access broker, you've got to pay them. So how are you going to train an agent, or how is an agent going to negotiate with possibly another agent or a human to get the credentials, point it to the right place, and then get started? So where this started, it was staged. So the agent was set up for success. We're looking at 2 internet exposed, over a year old, critical or high vulnerabilities. These were CVSS 9 plus. So any company in today's world that has internet exposed services should know that they have a 9 plus CVSS exposed to the internet. So that right there, you're setting the bar really low for the attackers. So to the fact that the agent was able to mimic human behavior after it was given credentials and after it was pointed at something that was vulnerable, okay, fine. But you could also do the same thing with someone who is young and innovative, and they could stumble their way through that. Maybe not all the way to deploying the ransomware, but you've kind of left the door and window open for them to get in. So, but the fact that the agent was able to chain together multiple different parts of the attack process, actually execute, that's the interesting part about it. What do I take away from it? It's like, well, we already know that like our pen testers, we do hundreds of pen tests a year. For efficiencies, why would we not use technology to make ourselves faster? So we're already scripting things and building our own software, even if we're not using agents. Now we know that agents can do things much faster than humans. So we're 100% sure that the bad guys are using agents and AI everywhere they can in their process to make them faster and more efficient. So this is more of a, hey, look, we were able to do more with AI without supervision versus it did the whole thing by itself.
Right. I mean, there was still a human involved. And the other point too is like, none of the individual tactics or tricks that the AI used were really new or arguably even clever. As you pointed out, somebody could stumble their way through it. So, I mean, we had breaking into an exposed server, stealing passwords, hopping onto another machine, wiping a database. Attackers have been doing this stuff for years and years. So what's new, and I have heard this also, like you said, it's not that new, but I've heard it called more of an evolution than an invention or a revolution. But what's new is that AI stitching the sequence together on its own, and I do like the ransom note part at the end, like it's just adding its own little personality into it, I guess. But the other stat that I have here is that it fired off more than 600 separate commands in a very, very short window. So perhaps the speed element too is something worth giving a little attention. So since attackers have already been automating their work with scripts for decades, and now they have these powerful tools, like you said, we're scripting stuff in our pen testing team and everywhere really. So what, if anything, makes the AI doing it fundamentally different from a really good script? Or is first we're just marketing here, good marketer doing their job?
Yeah, right now there's not really anything fundamentally different than speed. Again, it's learning from humans. It is taking examples and piecing them together and trying new things. It's using known techniques. Now, where it will really start to be a tipping point is when it starts writing exploits and developing brand new techniques that we haven't seen before. And honestly, we haven't seen that yet, because all it can do is mimic what we do as we've trained it. So that as soon as we've get to a point where we have to defend against a new unknown. But again, technology works in a very predictable way. We have the TCP/IP stack. We have the way that applications and databases and communications work. So it's AI, even if it comes up with new attack patterns, it's still constrained to the way that technology works. And that's the way we defend right now against humans, because what happens when a very smart human has come up with a new exploit or new threat vector or a way to attack, well, we've got to adjust, but we've been doing that anyway. So it's the tipping point is when it will be able to do these things faster, able to be more accurately creative, because sometimes it's creative hallucinating, but whenever it can be more creative and iterate through more potential scenarios at such a high speed that actually do have an impact. Again, we're going to have to defend. We're going to have to be better defenders, from the beginning to the detection point to stopping the damage.
So that was actually my next question was asking about, from the defender's perspective, does the AI running the sequence itself, does that actually change what the defenders have to do or what they should worry about? Or is it just that speed element that we've been talking about?
It doesn't change what we have to do, but it changes the diligence that we need to have and the speed that we need to have. Again, these were 1-year-old high and critical vulnerabilities exposed to the internet. So we should have already caught those a long time ago. There's absolutely no reason for those to be exposed. So anybody who is sitting around with a critical vulnerability on the internet, they're just lucky nobody's found it yet, because it's just a matter of time before you're going to pay the price for that. So, so this has reduced our time to patch, our time to mitigate. This has increased our diligence that we need to have, which we should already have diligence on all our internet exposed services. You should have something that's continuously watching your attack surface. You should have processes in place so that nothing new is exposed to the internet without going through some type of approval process. You should get some type of notification if in a very short period of time, if a new service or anything is exposed to the internet within your domain or your sphere of responsibility. These are things that shouldn't be surprises to anyone. It is a struggle for smaller organizations that don't really have some of the tools, but for enterprise security, these are all things that we should have been doing for a long time. So it's the proactive diligence, the detection, the ability to detect and detect quickly, and then also too, it's building that layered security defenses and that resilient capability, which again, we should all be, we've been working on these for years. So if whether it is an individual or an agent acting as an individual and they make it into your system, you should already have layered security in place that's going to limit that blast radius and it's going to limit the damage it can do.
Great point. Yeah. So that, and I wanted to bring up last year we had Prompt Lock, which was billed as the first AI ransomware in it. And then we found out it was really just a university research project. I feel like you're very good at cutting through the hype. And that's one of the things I appreciate about our conversations. And so my question is is our industry just a little too eager to crown a first ransomware? How should listeners sniff out hype like this?
I think that, well, part of it is even just the media today. I mean, any headline, I don't care whether it's technology, AI related or not, they're all after your eyeballs, after your clicks. So practically any headline I see nowadays, I'm kind of like, is it really as grand, as bad, as big, as whatever they say it is? They're all over dramatized. So it's kind of trained me to be skeptical of anything I read. So I believe that you would treat an AI headline and an attack headline very similar to the over dramatized any news article that you see on the internet nowadays. So I think it's just the way that everything's gone, and especially with some of the new, and it's exciting too for many people. Like, wow, like I can talk to my computer and it talks back to me, or from a vibe code standpoint, it's like, I'm not really good at coding. I kind of understand how it works, but I can actually say, write me an application that does this thing. Oh, I don't really like the way the UI looks. Can you change it to make it look more like that? And it does it for you. So these are exciting and fun things to see. And so I think that there's naturally some hype around it. And I would say that you actually need to have your antenna up for anything like this, like even going back to Mythos. That is interesting, and it is a nice proof of concept that Mythos was finding vulnerabilities that were very old that had never been found. But again, the missing piece is it had full access to all of the source code. Your source code for most commercial applications is not exposed. It's not freely available. It's not available for AI to go find new old vulnerabilities. So some of this stuff you've got to sift through what it really means.
Yeah, that's so true. So, we mentioned earlier that a human was still involved in this. I want to go back to that point. A human, they picked the victim in this scenario. They set up the behind the scenes servers. And then the important part too is that they handed the AI the master password, which had been stolen in a earlier separate break-in. So it's, so the AI did the hands-on hacking part, but the human really, aimed the gun and loaded it. And, the article that we were looking at from TechCrunch, this really wasn't a fully hands-off robot attack that the headline suggested. So I think there's a lot that we can kind of dig into, like where is this honest line between, an AI ran the attack and then AI helped with the attack? Like how do we draw that line?
Well, as I said before, it was set up for success.
Right.
So we wanted this to happen. We set the environment so that it would happen. The the interesting piece of it is that it was with some training is, I think what you could say is it ran most of the attack. So the fact that it ran most, and we know how quickly AI is adapting and how we're able to train it and how we're able to take advantage of this technology, it's safe to assume that we can do better, or AI, the agent can do better with training, and that it will do better, and it will be better fast, because that's what we continue to see is how quickly these things are changing. So yeah, it's okay. So we set it up for success and gave it a low bar. As we train it, we raise the bar, and as we it gets more skills, how much more of it will it be able to realistically do in a more difficult situation? And the answer is it will. The AI agent will get better, and it will get better faster. So we need to be ready for that. But again, if we don't expose critical vulnerabilities to the internet and give AI administrative access, it's going to have a harder time, just like any human would.
Yeah, those critical controls are called critical controls for a reason. They're kind of important. So, all right. One expert did say that this kind of attack kills security by obscurity. This idea that you're safe just because you're small or hard to notice. But the AI didn't stop at the first password it found. It grabbed everything. So do you buy that hiding is no longer a viable strategy? And what does that mean for smaller organizations?
I have never supported security by obscurity.
Me neither.
Even before, I mean, oh, they'll never find me. Well, that's what probably 60% of the, well, actually probably more than that, of any ransomware case that we've dealt with, probably 75% of them said, I never thought it would happen to me, or more. So yeah, it's that is very naive thinking, and I believe that that everybody should already be have moved away from that by now.
Yeah, me too. All right. The next point I want to get into it seemed a little bit more interesting in the stories that I was reading about this, is that the AI narrated what it was doing. So its attack code was full of plain English notes that explained its own reasoning as it went. This database is most valuable, hit it first type of dictation, I guess. So human hackers really almost never bother to comment throwaway code like that, but AI does it by reflex. That's kind of how these agents are built to operate. And then it also fixed its own mistakes at that very fast pace. I have written here, at one point, a login failed, and then 31 seconds later, the AI had diagnosed the problem, rewritten its code, and gotten in. Didn't take a coffee break or have to Google anything. So basically, my question, you have an AI that leaves a diary behind explaining its plans. Sysdig frames that as a gift to defenders. They can use this. You can literally read the attacker's intentions. But is that really like a lasting advantage for us, or will attackers just tell their AI to keep quiet and strip out the comments and, don't?
Well,
how long does this tell survive after this?
Yeah, as a defender, we know their intent anyway. We know what they're after. We've seen these attacks, and again, they're mimicking humans. So, sure, it might be interesting to a defender to see how the LLM iterated through its attack, but it's probably not going to be anything earth-shattering. Where I think that the real value for that lies, which they didn't say anything about that, is if I am running ransomware as a service and I'm trying to be more efficient and I have these agents executing on this, I can have the agents report back and learn from each other of I tried this and this failed. I tried this and this failed. I fixed this in this way. And if you can train multiple agents across that, or thousands or more, they're going to be more efficient at these attacks. However, the issue with the password that it fixed in 31 seconds is still one that would have been fixed by a human, just not as fast. So again, we're talking about the same thing at scale and speed. So the defenses are still the same. The need for diligence is higher than ever, and the bar continues to be raised. So again, this goes back to, are we really sure of what our security posture is? And that's another thing too that we don't understand about this environment that was set up, is we already know that the bar was set low. It's set up for success. We don't know if there were any other security controls applied in this. I mean, we got internet exposed services with high vulnerabilities. We gave it admin credentials. Is there any other security? Was there any other, segmentation, monitoring? Was there even, EDR or any other security tool available? Was there a WAF that was watching for malicious activity? We don't know any of those things. And I think it's safe to assume that by the way it was set up, that there was a lower bar of security, which again, the goal was obviously, let's see if it can do it. And we don't want to see it fail time and time again. They wanted to see it succeed so that they could publish this.
Yeah. Really, really good point. That does kind of come back to this question. A lot of companies' incident response playbooks, they'll have, they were created before the age of agentic ransomware, and that kind of assumes that we have hours and at least minutes. But now, does that mean that assumption is dead? We have to speed everything up.
Well, of course, the IR playbook is after you've already got it. So instant response is after the incident. So that doesn't change. You still have ransomware, so you still got to do the things. But the Defender playbook, as I mentioned earlier, is just that extra attention to detail, because now the mistake or the open hole or the blind spot can be found and exploited faster than it ever could. So you've got to be that continuously watching for the vulnerability, for the exposure, and you've got to be mitigating it as quickly as possible before something else does. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Background noise, yeah.
Anybody watching, maybe if you're a birder out there, tell us what the bird is in the tree behind David.
There was apparently they feed the squirrels and birds here because I had to shoo a few of them off. They were
looking for peanuts.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, so moving on to the next point too, I have here that nobody actually knows what AI ran the attack. Sysdig apparently couldn't identify it. So, and the big name AI keys that they found, which were OpenAI, Anthropic, et cetera, were just the loot that the AI stole, not actually proof of what was driving it. And the other thing too is that the Bitcoin address that it gave in its ransomware is kind of weird. It's the exact same example address that's used in Bitcoin's own instruction manuals. So it's the kind of thing like an AI might have just parroted from its training. I guess so. Like, did the AI make up a fake address by accident? Did the person pointing this AI at thing that they plug in a real one that happens to just match? It seems unlikely, but it's unknown. And then the ransomware promised that the data could be unlocked if paid, but the AI threw away the only key. So the victim literally couldn't recover their files even if they did pay up. So it seems like a lot of like questionable, I don't know, like how sophisticated was this really?
Well, those are a couple of different issues. So
yes,
obviously, if you told the agent the goal was to deploy ransomware in a way that it could be recovered and that it could receive payment, then it would have failed at its task. So was that actually even a stated goal, or did they just prompt it and say, go see if you can't ransom this place? And so if it was the latter, then, it did the best it could. It possibly even scoured and found Bitcoin's manual. It's like, oh, here's a Bitcoin address, even though it had no idea on how it might collect funds from that address. And then on the encryption, obviously that wasn't important to all that was important was for it to encrypt, not decrypt. So you've got to specify those things. Now on the which model did it use? The real concern there is if it used a frontier model that should have had guardrails, how was it able to actually bypass those guardrails? Or if it used a local model, which obviously you can customize to your ability, then it's understood that it may not have even had any guardrails to begin with. So the question is if it was using public frontier models, how was it able to do some of these things when it's supposed to? Those are supposed to be locked down, but we just don't even know what model was used. And I guess from a potential defender or a cyber security point of view is, are certain models better for this type of for this agent to be successful versus others? And that's the question. We don't know what it used. I would be surprised if it was able to use frontier models to run the full attack chain, because that would just be a lot of you would really have to fool the and get past the guardrails to make that work.
Yeah, I agree. I think that does call it into question a little bit whether they could reach or use those models. Going back to the point about the AI botching the encryption, losing the key. I think if you're looking at it like a company who's become the victim of a ransomware attack, how does this concept of AI attacks that are maybe destructive by accident, where paying the ransom actually does nothing to get your data? How does that or how should it change how a company thinks about whether or not to pay the ransom?
It really doesn't change anything, because currently we're dealing with criminals. Existing criminals right now, they have technical issues with their ransomware all the time. For example, if you encrypt a live database that's mounted, many times it'll corrupt it. So it really doesn't matter whether you decrypt it or not, because the database is no good. We've also dealt with criminals in the past that have had serious technical issues where we could not get the decryption key to work even after we paid for it. You also have the problem of paying a criminal that says, trust me, I won't, I've exfiltrated your data, but trust me, if you pay me, I'm not going to expose it to anyone. And then we find that data, the customer gets extorted again by some other criminal who actually happens to get a copy of it. So if whether or not AI screws up during its ransomware escapade doesn't really matter, because the humans screw it up all the time anyway. So it's
such a good point. We're all screwing it up.
Still dealing with technology. So
yes, good point. So to kind of wrap this conversation up a little bit, we're talking a little bit about fixes that you would have. I mean, that people should be thinking about for something like this. And kind of, again, more of the same. It sounds like patch your software, put those critical controls in place. Don't leave admin logins for databases open to the whole internet. The really basic stuff, but very important stuff. So do you have any additional, like, does the where's my question? Here we go. Sorry. If anybody can now run a serious attack, like, do you buy that? Does the human bottleneck thing come into play? Does that keep a lid on things? Does that change anything beyond the basics that we need to be warning people about here?
Yeah. So I think one of the newer things that folks aren't doing is, and it's Gartner's called it CTEM, Continuous Threat Exposure Management, which a piece of that is validating that you have, well, first of all, continually looking for your exposure, and then actually closing the loop on it. And so now there's new continuous red teaming solutions, continuous penetration testing solutions, You've got to have quick remediation once you find these things. And there are now plenty of companies out there. We've got some partners that are really good at patching things very quickly and updating configurations. But you've got to almost maintain a near perfect external security posture and a very good security posture internally too, because you're still going to get the users that click on the phishing email and let the criminal in. So in another, we're looking at, for example, Google, one of the Gemini projects has an incubator that now has 33 new AI security technologies in it, and we're developing some of it ourselves as well. We're not part of that project, but no, we're going to have agent led security products that can react faster than humans can in many of these cases. So we'll have the agent fighting the agent. So these things are coming. They'll be here.
Yeah. All right. So let's wrap this up. Give me your one-line verdict. I think I know the answer, but state of, is this a milestone? Is it hype? Is it somewhere in between?
This was a proof of concept of an AI agent ransomware execution. It was a proof of concept is all it was. It's like, yes, it could happen. And of course, if we set the stage for it, we're going to make sure that it's successful.
Do proof of concept exercises like this set the stage for AI to advance to be able to do this stuff better? And are we training them to be able to take the next step to do more themselves?
Well, these security researchers, I don't know what they're going to do next, but you can be sure that the bad guys are already working on this. So just as I said earlier, especially if it's going to be verbose about what it's doing, and I'm the I'm the threat actor, I'm going to say, all right, give me that feedback so that you do better next time. And then now, how do we improve this? So they're already working on this right now.
Yeah. Last question. What would a genuinely alarming headline look like? Like, that's not hype, that's not marketing doing its job. What would really scare you?
a reputable source that has like a Verizon DBIR or one of the other security, well-respected security research reports that said something to the effect of AI agents have 10x ransomware attacks. So this would be a data-driven headline where we actually see proof that we've got threat actors using AI agents to execute the ransomware, and we see the spike. Because right now, ransomware is still 50% of all attacks that are all incidents that Verizon was looking at for the most recent report. So ransomware, it's still out there, it's still pervasive, it's still growing. But if we saw an absolute spike and we know that the agents are out there doing the work and we can actually prove it from a data-driven perspective, then that's where we go, okay, what do we do now?
Yeah. All right. Great end note for us. All right. I want to say goodbye to everybody. We'll be back again to talk about this and many other things soon. Subscribe on our YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're on one of our social channels, head to our YouTube, Secure IT 360, and subscribe, because we'll be back again with more interesting conversations with David. So,
yep.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Michelle.